Hey everybody, it's me, Asinellus, and welcome back to another video. Welcome back to Reddit. Welcome to r/ProRevenge, an amazing place where people get the revenge that they deserve. And in case you've never seen this subreddit before, then let me quickly show you what it's all about. Neighbour almost paralyzes our cat, so my dad gets him fired from work. So when I was a kid, we had a cat named Friday. Friday was a young outdoor cat, only about a year old. I was playing with his kids when my mum brought me home. To my horror, I discovered our cat next to the cat door bloody. My dad took him to the vet and they said he had little chance of walking again. My little brother told my parents he had seen him kick our cat. My dad wanted revenge and luckily knew he smoked weed in his backyard. My dad tipped his work he might smoke weed, and his work drug tested him. And his car didn't leave too often after that. By the way, our cat Friday is 9, and a healthy boy, now that he can walk, but can't move his tail. And luckily for us, a picture of Friday was attached, who's a cute little kitty, and I mean, who wouldn't love a little cat? So guys, if you like that short little story, that's only the beginning. There's tons more awesome stuff to come, so stick around, subscribe to the channel, and we'll get straight into the video. When life gives you lemons. This happened years ago, when I was a teen living with my parents. My father had a lot of friends who were farmers, and would often bring home bulk amounts of random crops from those harvests, which were typically in exchange for his mechanical expertise. One year in particular, he brought home a literal truckload of produce, including apples, oranges, pears, lemons, and so on. Our dining room was filled with produce boxes, overflowing with the food. So my brother, sister, and I were told to help ourselves to whatever we wanted as snacks. Now my brother is a few years younger than me and was quite the entitled brat. The world was his, and everyone had to play by his rules. Otherwise, there would be hell to pay. He thankfully grew out of it, but during the time of the story, he was so close to the peak of entitlement. He would demand that someone peel him an orange, cut him an apple, or whatever because he couldn't. He was in his early teens and could. I just ignored him most of the time best I could and rarely caved into his demands. So one day I was peeling an orange and he came up and asked me to peel one for him, to which I said, no. He asked me to give him mine once I was done peeling it, and again I said no. He even graciously went and picked out an orange from one of the boxes and brought it to me so I didn't have to fetch one for him, and I still refused. He proceeded to start calling me names and stomped off in a fit. I just shrugged, as this was the majority of our interactions at this age. As I was almost done peeling my orange, my mum called me from the other room for my help moving some furniture. I sat down my food and was gone for maybe 1 minute before returning to find my orange had been swapped out with a new unpeeled one. Upon realizing what happened, I turned to see my brother walking out the back door, eating my orange and giving me a nice little victory wave before closing the door. Now I know this is a very minor thing in the grand scheme of things, however, I was furious on principle. I was tired of seeing my brother just take whatever he wanted, and I had an idea to teach him a lesson. I went over to the produce and pulled out 4 large oranges, peeled each of them, broke them into wedges, and placed them onto a dinner plate in the middle of the kitchen. Then I picked out the largest of all of the lemons and proceeded to peel it in the same way you peel oranges, which as I found out is more difficult due to the peel being very brittle. An amusing fact, if you place a lemon wedge among several orange wedges, it blends in very well. If you're not actively aware of this and just take a glance, you would never distinguish the difference. Now, all I had to do was wait. Sure enough, minutes later, my brother came back inside and with a smirk on his face, thanked me for peeling his orange. I shrugged and ignored him, trying to hide my excitement for what was about to happen. He caught a glimpse of a plate with the oranges and decided to help himself to another. He didn't ask anyone and decided to just do what he did best. Take what he wanted. I watched with glee as he grabbed the largest lemon on the plate and popped it into his mouth and walked away. He may have made it 2 steps before his brain shorted out. His body went rigid, his muscles clenched, and he started shaking as tremors from the unexpected sour assaulted his mouth. Those few seconds seemed to take forever for me, so I could only assume how long it felt for him before he finally sprung into action and ran towards the kitchen sink. Well, not so much run, as it was like Frankenstein's monster in fast forward because he was still having trouble getting his body to move from the shock. He leaned over the sink and tried to spit out the lemon. However, he couldn't, as he had jaw lock by this point and couldn't unclench his teeth from the lemon. All he could do was heave through clenched teeth, drooping into the sink for several minutes before he was finally able to regain control of his body and spit out the lemon. He looked over to me with this confused, beaten, shocked expression on his face that, without words, conveyed that it was a flawless victory on my part. I must have laughed until I cried on that day. To his credit, he acknowledged my win, and I never had problems with him taking my stuff again. Well, for a short time anyways. He was at least a little more respectful and cautious when I said no. Yeah, siblings can be very annoying. But this one must have been particularly bad and got the revenge he deserved. 3 strikes and you're out? Cool, I got this. I work in sales and we work as a team. I have an assistant who helps me get leads and set appointments. Well, this one particular assistant and I did not get along at all. This particular assistant kept going on my boss behind my back to report every little incident, which is really effing annoying. Part of my role as the senior rep was training. However, this assistant was a former business owner and knew how to do the job and didn't need no help. While the appointments the assistant set up had an 80% no-show rate, which is insane. In the past, no-shows would have been 25 to 30%. Not only that, this assistant would constantly argue and bicker over everything, which was really frustrating to deal with. This assistant also created their own lead card and tracking system, which completely sucked, and poop fell through all the time. Furthermore, about half of all contact details provided didn't actually work. But what really irked me the most is this assistant constantly sucked up to my manager about all the great things they're doing. My manager was in love with the assistant and kept preventing me from firing the assistant and replacing them. Now, our company had a little known policy. 3 ethic complaints in a 12-month period, and you're fired. Here's the deal though. For a customer to file a complaint, they had to go to a specific page on our website, so very few complaints ever got filed. One day, I roll in 10 minutes late. My assistant had called my manager to complain that I was late. My boss asked me why I'm late, keeping in mind we didn't clock in or out, and I often would come in early or stay late. To come in late once in a while was no big deal, but it was annoying knowing my assistant had a habit of constantly going behind my back and ratting me out on top of their poopy production. We're supposed to be a team. I asked to do a review of the assistant's leads. We got 3 leads deep and my assistant huffed and puffed and said the leads belonged to them, not me, and it's none of my business. Actually, it is. They then called my boss to complain about my behavior because I was pushing them to complete the lead review. My boss called me and I straight up told him he needs to give me the authority to fire this assistant or I'm going to force his hand. He told me I needed to learn how to work with my assistant. So I pulled up all the assistant's leads and began dialing. One thing that would justify an ethics complaint is opting in the lead for a call when they didn't want to be called, which I suspected I could find at least 3 instances of. I called all of the leads and got 9 people who straight up said, "We never intended to be opted in to be given sales calls," to which I replied, "Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. We actually have an ethic complaints page for such a situation. Would you like me to forward you the link so you can file a complaint? It would really help us ensure this kind of thing doesn't happen again." Within 48 hours, my assistant had gotten 5 ethics complaints. My boss called me 72 hours later. "Sting, it's really strange. We've got a slew of complaints about your assistant. Did you have any part in this?" Well, you see, my assistant refused to conduct a lead review with me, so I called all their leads for them. On a few occasions, the lead claimed that they didn't intend on providing their information for sales calls, so I simply sent them to the link to file a complaint. My boss said, "Yeah, well, now I'm forced to fire the assistant." I simply smiled and said, "Oh, that's really unfortunate. I'm so sorry to hear that." He confided, "I guess you won this one." I said, "Not a problem. I'll go ahead and post the new job ad." My next assistant was much better and way easier to work with. I love how the boss in the story decided to run with it. He wasn't like, "Oh, but this is such a good assistant." He was just like, "Yeah, whatever, you got this one. It's your call, get yourself a new assistant." Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this. This was r/ProRevenge, and hopefully you got to see some nice little revenge stories today. It was just a short little video, so if you liked what you saw, subscribe to the channel and there will be plenty more. At the moment, I'm uploading 3 times every week, so 3 Reddit videos every single week. But as usual guys, I hope that you enjoyed, and all I want to do is see you all here next time. See you later guys!